Welcome to this episode. Today we're diving into a detailed leadership self-assessment report by Modupe Sarratt, a student who analyzed her leadership capabilities through the lens of the five-factor model of personality.
Yeah, Liam, it's a fascinating look at how personality traits can shape leadership style. Just to set the stage, the five-factor model, sometimes called the Big Five, includes extroversion, neuroticism, openness to experience, conscientiousness, and agreeableness.
Right, and Modupe's report compares her scores to a normative group of women aged 50 and above. She uses percentile rankings to classify each trait as low, average, or high. So roughly, the lowest 30% are considered low, the middle 40% average, and the top 30% high.
That's an important point, because it means her scores are relative to a specific demographic, which affects how we interpret them. It's not just about the raw score, but how she compares to peers in that group.
Exactly, and this episode will unpack how these personality traits relate to leadership effectiveness, especially in healthcare administration, which is Modupe's career focus.
So let's start with a quick overview of the Big Five traits and their general relevance to leadership. Extroversion covers sociability, assertiveness, and energy. Neuroticism relates to emotional stability versus distress. Openness to experience involves creativity and intellectual curiosity. Conscientiousness is about organization, dependability, and discipline. And agreeableness reflects cooperation, empathy, and social harmony.
Modupe's report really zeroes in on how these traits manifest in her leadership style and effectiveness. One of the standout findings is her extremely high score in conscientiousness. She's in the 97th percentile.
That's quite remarkable. According to Johnson's 2014 framework, conscientiousness breaks down into several facets: self-efficacy, orderliness, dutifulness, achievement striving, self-discipline, and cautiousness. Modupe scored very high across these, which paints a picture of a leader who is dependable, goal-oriented, and morally grounded.
Let's unpack those facets a bit. Self-efficacy is about confidence in one's ability to accomplish tasks. Orderliness reflects a preference for organization and routines. Dutifulness is a strong sense of moral obligation and responsibility. Achievement striving is the drive for excellence and success. Self-discipline is the willpower to persist through challenges. And cautiousness means careful decision-making.
When you put all that together, you get a leader who's not just reliable, but also deeply committed to ethical standards and high performance. And in healthcare administration, where responsibility and ethical behavior are critical, that's a huge advantage.
Absolutely. Dutifulness in particular stands out because it reflects a moral compass that guides decision-making. Modupe emphasizes this as central to her leadership philosophy.
Now, what about her extroversion? She identifies as an extrovert, but scores average overall in that domain. Yet she scores high in assertiveness, which means she's confident in expressing opinions and taking initiative.
That's an interesting mix. Her excitement-seeking is average, which aligns with her conscientiousness and self-efficacy. So she's practical and proactive, but not impulsive.
It's a leadership style that's communicative and grounded, which can be very effective in complex environments like healthcare.
I was intrigued by her use of ifs-buts language. It's a way she fosters mutual understanding and collaboration through polite requests and conditional reasoning.
Yeah, it's a subtle but powerful communication tool. Instead of issuing commands, she frames things conditionally, which invites dialogue and flexibility.
That ties nicely into situational leadership theory, which we'll get to in a bit. But before that, let's talk about her low score in openness to experience.
She clarifies that this low openness reflects a conservative, practical mindset rather than a lack of intellect. She values straightforward, plain thinking and listens carefully to others.
That's important because openness is often linked to creativity and novelty, but in leadership, especially in regulated fields like healthcare, pragmatism and reliability can be just as valuable.
Exactly. And her high morality score balances that low openness, emphasizing honesty and integrity. She's not someone who manipulates or fabricates information, which is crucial for trust in leadership.
Moving on to neuroticism, Modupe scores low, which is positive for leadership. She views neuroticism as more influenced by environment than fixed personality traits.
High neuroticism is associated with mental distress, anxiety, and ineffective leadership. So her low neuroticism supports an optimistic, positive, and realistic approach to challenges.
That emotional stability is essential for maintaining morale and inspiring confidence in teams.
Agreeableness is another interesting area. Modupe's score is average, with cooperation also average. But she prioritizes dutifulness over cooperation, meaning she values getting the job done and following rules more than social harmony.
That's a classic leadership trade-off, balancing interpersonal relationships with accountability.
She describes herself as fair and brave, seeing the best in people but maintaining standards. That's a nuanced approach, especially in complex workplaces.
Her behavioral style is described as influential, with a focus on productivity and compliance. She scores very high in self-discipline at 97% and achievement striving at 88%, indicating strong willpower and drive for excellence.
And her cautiousness score is 95%, which supports her problem-solving ability by thinking through options carefully. She emphasizes honesty, avoiding manipulation, and being candid and sincere.
She also highlights flexibility, resilience, and respect for diversity as key leadership behaviors. The ifs-buts approach we mentioned earlier is a communication tool she uses to navigate complex situations with polite requests and conditional reasoning.
Let's unpack that situational leadership aspect. According to Nordhaus, situational leadership depends on leader-member relations, task structure, and position power.
Modupe's ifs-buts method is a practical application of this theory. For example, she asks questions like, if someone has the skill but no motivation, is motivation sufficient? Or, if starting a task is hard but desire is strong, then the problem is solved.
And if a problem arises, there's always a plan to reinvent. This approach encourages flexibility, problem-solving, and mutual respect, which are essential in dynamic organizational environments.
It's a reminder that leadership isn't one size fits all. You have to adapt to the situation and the people involved.
On a personal level, Modupe's leadership identity is grounded in extroversion and conscientiousness. She values honesty, positivity, pragmatism, and continuous self-improvement.
She also recognizes the need to improve sociability and agreeableness to enhance productivity. Her motto, "Knowledge is power," reflects a holistic leadership style combining mental energy, motivation, and decisiveness.
That holistic approach aligns well with her aspiration to be a healthcare administrator, where these traits meet the demands of the role.
To wrap up, Modupe's report reminds us that leadership is multifaceted. No single personality profile fits all, but conscientiousness clearly emerges as a critical trait for effective leadership, especially in structured, ethical environments.
Emotional stability, or low neuroticism, and assertiveness support positive leadership behaviors. And in some contexts, practicality and moral obligation can outweigh openness to novelty.
Situational adaptability, like the ifs-buts approach, is key to navigating complex challenges. And self-awareness, along with a willingness to develop weaker traits, is vital for leadership growth.
Overall, Modupe's introspective report offers valuable insights into how personality traits shape leadership style and effectiveness, especially in healthcare administration.
Thanks for joining us in this exploration. We hope this discussion gives you a deeper understanding of the interplay between personality and leadership.
Until next time.
Welcome to today's episode. We're diving into a fascinating leadership assessment report by Modupe Sarratt, who used the 5-factor model of personality to explore her leadership capabilities.
That's right, Liam. The 5-factor model, for those who might not be familiar, breaks personality down into 5 traits: extroversion, neuroticism, openness to experience, conscientiousness, and agreeableness. Modupe's report compares her scores to other women her age, classifying each trait as low, average, or high.
Exactly. And the scoring system is pretty straightforward. Lowest 30% is low, middle 40% is average, and highest 30% is high. But it's interesting that scores near the boundaries can sometimes misclassify someone as average, which Modupe points out in her report.
That's a good point. Now, Modupe's leadership identity is extroversion. She's sociable, assertive, full of energy, and enjoys engaging with others. But her standout leadership trait is conscientiousness, where she scored very high, 97%.
That's impressive. Conscientiousness is all about being organized, dependable, disciplined, and goal-oriented. It's often the engine that keeps a leader on track, especially in demanding roles like healthcare administration, which is Modupe's career goal.
And it's not just about being organized. Modupe's high conscientiousness means she's thorough, dutiful, and motivated to achieve excellence. She has a strong sense of duty and moral obligation, which really guides her leadership decisions.
What's interesting is her average score for agreeableness. She balances cooperation with getting the job done. So while she values teamwork, she prioritizes responsibility and duty over just getting along.
Right, and her low score in openness to experience doesn't mean she lacks intellect. Instead, it reflects a preference for practical, straightforward thinking, rather than abstract or novel ideas. She's honest and values clear communication.
And her low neuroticism is a real strength. Being emotionally stable, optimistic, and resilient helps her handle stress and challenges effectively. That's crucial for any leader.
One of the most unique parts of Modupe's report is her FS Butts approach. She uses conditional questions to navigate complex leadership situations. For example, she asks, if someone has the skill but no motivation, is that enough? Or if a problem arises, is there a plan to reinvent?
I like that. It's a practical mental model that encourages flexibility and critical thinking. Leaders often face uncertainty, and this approach helps bring about mutual understanding and thoughtful decision-making.
Absolutely. Moving on to her behavioral style, Modupe emphasizes influencing others by encouraging them to see things from the employer's perspective. She scored 97% in self-discipline and 88% in achievement striving, meaning she persists through challenges and aims for excellence.
She's also cautious and thoughtful, preferring to think through decisions carefully before acting. Honesty and morality are central to her leadership style. She avoids manipulation and values sincerity.
Communication and mutual respect are key for her to foster cooperation. Even though her cooperation score is average, she's aware of the need to improve sociability and friendliness to boost productivity.
That's a great example of self-awareness. Modupe's motto, knowledge is power, reflects her commitment to continuous learning and holistic leadership. She sees leadership as both a research-based and practical skill, requiring adaptability and emotional intelligence.
For listeners, this report highlights how understanding your personality traits can help identify leadership strengths and areas for growth. Conscientiousness, often overlooked, is a powerful predictor of leadership success, and emotional stability helps handle workplace stress.
Plus, practical tools like the FS Butts approach can help anyone navigate complex decisions. Leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about self-awareness, honesty, and continuous growth.
To wrap up, Modupe's report shows how personality shapes leadership style. Knowing yourself is the first step to becoming an effective leader, and traits like conscientiousness and integrity really make a difference.
Well said. We hope this episode gives you some food for thought about your own leadership journey. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Leader Surveys, Assessing My Leadership Capabilities Report. Student, Modupe Sarratt. Management 615-9081. Homework 1. Professor, Dr. Cynthia G. Pierre. Abstract. This paper analyzes my personality measures on the 5 models for extroversion, neuroticism, and openness to experience, conscientiousness, and agreeableness. The report classified Maria, the given nickname for my test, as low, average, or high in a trait is by approximation for the lowest 30%, middle or average 40%, and high or the highest 60% of scores obtained from the people of the same sex, that is, female and roughly of the same age, that is, 50 years and above. High and low score descriptions are usually accurate, but average scores close to the low or high boundaries according to Johnson, 2014. Although my score is low for openness to experience because I'm a conservative for thinking in plain and simple term to listen well to other viewpoint is my honesty that factor into my high score for morality. For a leader I have the mindset that see the best in people to influence for ability, for a goal and to achieve success in the workplace is my leadership ability to match what an employer wants with what an employees can do. The contrast to my average score for agreeableness is my high score for conscientiousness. The subdomain for agreeableness is cooperation for being average is a contrast to subdomain for conscientiousness is dutifulness is my pros and cons for analyzing situation. To me cooperation for getting along with people is the pros and cons for getting the job done for dutifulness that getting the job done for sense of duty is higher than getting along with people to cooperate with others. According to Johnson, 2014 conscientiousness, high score in dutifulness reflect the strength of a person's sense of duty and obligation is morale, the drive for moral obligation. While my score is average for excitement-seeking level, a subdomain of extroversion, is because it correlates to self-efficacy for average, a subdomain of conscientiousness is my average in the workplace. Introduction. This paper will analyze my personality measures for identity and trait using the models for extroversion, neuroticism, openness to experience, conscientiousness, and agreeableness. The report classified me as low, average, or high in a trait according to whether my score is approximately in the lowest 30%, middle 40%, or highest 30% of scores obtained by people of the same sex and roughly of the same age. High and low score descriptions are usually accurate, but average scores close to the low or high boundaries seem to misclassify me as only average according to Johnson, 2014. My identity for personality in the model is extroversion and my trait is conscientiousness for morale. Persons who score high on this scale typically experience a range of positive feelings, including happiness, enthusiasm, optimism, and joy. In the study of the result of the identity of my identity in terms of extroversion, for my high score for conscientiousness, it logical to be a leader requires the ability for communication and being practical or reasonable. Although there is an indication for excitement seeking that I think translate to the leadership style in the work environment for caring about others' well-being to be healthy and happy is a factor into my personality for extroversion. If Sputs is my leadership preference for expressing a polite request, gives an opinion, surprise with taking the initiative, and to implied reservation for the conjunction to bring about mutual understanding. When I start a leadership position, I need to stay proactive to be seen as an honest leader, because of my belief for honesty is the best policy. I also have to go out of my way to inspire people for leadership trait for conscientiousness according to Nordhaus, 2013, p.27, conscientiousness is the tendency to be thorough, organized, controlled, dependable, and decisive. My identity for extroversion and my trait for conscientiousness is my uniqueness for leadership that led to my successes. Uniqueness is my extraordinariness that supersedes others for leadership. Assessments for Leadership Capabilities Report. Most research today on the 5-factor model of personality focuses on questionnaires and how to ask or phrase personality questions in the best way possible. The report for my test identified me as an extroversion, E. The narrative of my identity is having affinity for inquisitiveness for desire to know the truth that translate into my high score for conscientiousness, Johnson, 2005. Although for personal development, the narrative seems to vary in my case for neuroticism is suppressed as the predisposed to the freedom to decide is development. In addition, I feel that neuroticism does not play a significant part in the role of personality or personal development because neuroticism is by influence or exposure to the environment that allow creation of defensive tactics for thinking that neuroticism is attitude not a habit nor a personality. I am certain that my adulthood is not being influenced by my childhood experiences, rather I learned that I could overcome challenges for making adjustment. Having scored average for extroversion for my identity, I'm sociable, I love being with people, and I'm full of energy. Emotional-wise, I am positive, and tend to be eager to take action for not procrastinate or delay doing task. Also, I valued myself as individuals who take the initiative to start group project if giving the opportunity for leadership. Having high score in subdomain for assertiveness, I have then tendency to assert where I stand in a debate. I do not like to seek attention, however, I like to be recognized for my contribution, and I like receiving credit for my work. Moreover, I like making connection for mutual respect, and I do not like making mistakes. Therefore, limit my social engagement to influencing people is my preference for influential. I engage to influence is my going beyond just a connection. Summary of my trait for leadership. The computer programs that generate my report compare the result of each assessment to other adult women in the USA. On each set of 5 domain scales, it is somewhat uncommon but certainly possible to score high in some of the subdomain and low in the others stated by Johnson, 2015, for narrative. I scored very high in conscientiousness for 97% of my leadership trait. High scorers on the scale for conscientiousness are known to be effective leaders with high levels of stimulation with a range of positive feelings to accomplish tasks with happiness, enthusiasm, optimism, and joy. I'm very happy with my high scored for conscientiousness. This is the scale for my score for conscientiousness, more information in the attached PDF. By addressing my strength for effectiveness and answering questions of my capabilities for securing a challenging position as healthcare administrator, I learned that being a manager can help to gain a better understanding of my strengths and weaknesses for leadership role. Although my test results showed that I am skilled at solving problem, and exceptional for assertiveness, I now understand that I can continue to work on my intellect to solve complex problem as a way of strengthening my moral for never to cheat, stick to rules, and reinforcing my goal in my career for healthcare administrator with conscientiousness. For personal development, I will work on prioritizing friendliness, agreeableness, cheerfulness, and level of activity. Although I'm predisposed to conscientiousness, I also believe that neuroticism plays a significant part in the role of one's personality. However, environmental factors have a bigger role in the development of a personality. I pride myself to be a leader as being positive and optimist as a realistic person when faced with challenges and is also rooted in my belief for if there is a will there is a way and if there is a way, anything is possible. Explain my low score on neuroticism. According to Johnson, 2014 neuroticism, a high score in neuroticism is considering as a trait for mental distress. Therefore, neuroticism is ineffective leadership because neuroticism is inability to fulfill the normal demand for experience negative feeling, such as anxiety, anger, or depression, and likely to experience several other negative emotions such as bias that can lead to prejudice for misjudging others for not giving chances to explore the possibility for changes that could bring a better result. Neuroticism is keeping the status quo to hinder improvement for the fear of losing power to learn that leadership is both research and practical for ability of individual to lead. Personal knowledge of leadership learned or gained. In the study of my results, I learned about my identity and my trait to lead is extroversion for being conscientiousness. My identity for an extroversion is I am realistic, practical, and friendly for having genuine interest in other people to openly engage feelings for others. I have the ability to make friends and form close or intimate relationships. Although my score for friendliness is average according to Johnson, 2014 extroversion, I do believe I can make improvement to go beyond forming a relationship for true friendship. My friends are dear to my heart. I have a high score for assertiveness. Being assertive to me is able to speak my mind, being in control of my action for not do as I was told in some occasions to assert my stand. In addition, I like to be direct with what I going to do or will not do are the activities that reflect of me accurately. I like to be in control of my words and actions for how I feel, see things and handle challenges. Furthermore, I pride myself for having high score in morality that factor into my trait for conscientiousness to be logical and thoughtful for diverse workplace is seeing individuals for who they are. Therefore, I have the ability to inspire others to do the right things. As well, I'm capable to manage my own outlook for staying positive, to focus on the task at hand and remain in charge of how I manage others. I have the ability to weigh the pros and cons in a situation to come up with appropriate response. As a leader, I'm brave and fair. I seek out the best in people to offer advice. For a leader, I have the mindset that see the best in people to influence for ability, for a goal, and to achieve success in the workplace is my leadership ability to match what an employer wants with what an employees can do. Having a skill is productive for doing what you know how to do is my view of good employment. For my leadership, communication is reasonable, for mutual understanding is being on one page with the subordinate to gain cooperation. Although my score is average for cooperation as an indication that I have willingness to compromise without deny my own needs in order to get along with others, for agreeable is that I am average for getting along with people. In contrast to being average for agreeableness is above average for high score for conscientiousness. According to Johnson, 2014, conscientiousness, dutifulness is subdomain of conscientiousness, for cooperation is subdomain of agreeableness. My cooperation for being average is my dutifulness for being above average for having conscientiousness as a trait. To me, cooperation for getting along with people is the pros and cons for getting the job done, for dutifulness as individual that getting the job done for sense of duty is higher than getting along with people for cooperation to get the job done in a corporate. I cherished individual responsibility is accurate about my sense of duty, and obeying rules supersedes changing my behavior to please others. According to Johnson, 2014, conscientiousness, high score in dutifulness reflect the strength of a person's sense of duty and obligation is morale, the drive for moral obligation. While my score is average for excitement-seeking level, a subdomain of extroversion, is because it correlates to self-efficacy. For average, a subdomain of conscientiousness is my average in the workplace. To realize I need to make improvement in sociability to increase my productivity. According to Nordhaus, 2013, p. 27, an extroversion is having the tendency to be sociable and assertive and to have positive energy. My dream career for a healthcare administrator requires me to be above average is also the potential for having positive energy to be accountable for my skills. Having the strong skill for duty and having the soft skill to deliver is my position for workplace excellence. That means I'm a professional. An extroversion provides the self-confidence and the determination to work hard with integrity. In the quest for a new career in healthcare administration, the desire is going for the leadership role. Having identified to be an extroversion and received an award for conscientiousness combined with adopted motto that knowledge is power. It is my desire for holistic leadership. A holistic leadership is individual superior mental energies, superior motivational forces perceived for having the knowledge of the fact to be thorough, organized, and to be decisive with behavior. Behavioral style for influencing others. Behavioral style is a team approach for management. According to Nordhaus, 2013, team management places a strong emphasis on both tasks and interpersonal relationship. It promotes a high degree of participation and teamwork in the organization, which is the basic need in employees' involvement and committed to their work. p.81, the behavioral for my leadership style is influencing employee to put themselves in the employer's shoes and having the ability to be the employer that will influence subordinate for compliance and productively. I'm an influential for productivity. To be productive as an employee or as an employer, it is difficult to be a people pleaser. Although my attitudes for duty first influence my behavior for productivity, to stick to the rules as an employee and affirm policies as an employer are my potentials to be an effective person and efficient leader is my high score for self-discipline, 97%. According to Johnson, 2013, self-discipline is having the willpower refers to the ability to persist at difficult or unpleasant tasks until they completed is able to perform despite distraction is a great attribute to be able to begin tasks and stay on track to achieve a goal. For my leadership in healthcare, staying on track to making improvement is my focus to see where to make a change for adjustment that enable me to also be a flexible leader. I'm flexible for staying responsive and do things in new and better ways to keep pace with demand. I'm resilient for emotionally reliable and having the ability to recover quickly from setbacks and continue toward my goals, getting along with others for respects and enjoyment to bring out the best in others and to give credit where is due are my attributes for leadership behavior that translate into my high score for achievement striving, 88%. According to Johnson, 2013, achievement striving is a behavior to achieve excellence and to be successful. Moreover, my high score for cautiousness, 95% imply that I have the behavior to solve problems because of my disposition to think through possibilities before taking an action. A problem solver is an attribute of a leadership for my ability to seek for a solution to a problem, sharing helpful ideas, taking the initiative, and being responsible to resolve issues is my openness to listen to others. Although my score is low for openness to experience because I am a conservative for thinking in plain and simple term to listen well to other viewpoint is my honesty that factor into my high score in morality for 70% is I am not a manipulator or a fabricator of information. I am a fact-finding person, and I do not play games with people feelings. According to Johnson, 2013, high score in morality see no need for pretense or manipulating when dealing with others and are therefore candid, frank, and sincere. I avoid frigidity and tantrum for my formality that some view as being standoffishness. Even tempered for not easily frustrated or angered is my behavior for taking things as it comes and not being too defensive with different view. In my view, being respectful is by listen to others is behavior that allow us to get along with one another. By listen is finding what sound good to me to follow an advice. To work well with a diverse range of people is my lifelong spirit for continuous seeking knowledge in different situation. I think diversity provides situational experience, because individual experience is different for a situation. Situational leadership for agreeableness and possibility for policy. For agreeableness is by the conviction for holistic leaders to include the adoption of ifs buts for just in spite of policy in a given situation. According to Nordhaus, 2013, situational is variable and constructed around three factors: leader-member relations, task structure, and position power, p.124. The three-factor is used to correlate the employee's ability to move forward and backward with competence and commitment to the employers that the leaders or the executives can explore to determine the nature of the situation to introduce the conditions that were necessary as well sufficient for doing task. In addition, there is variable in a situation for strong and weak when it comes to power to include ifs buts to do otherwise. Nordhaus, 2013, indicated, position power is strong if a person has the authority to hire and fire or give raises, and it is weak if a person does not have authority, p.125. For these reasons, asking questions with if buts as the followings is my creation that I found useful to address complex task. If having the skill but no desire to perform is motivation sufficient. If starting a task is difficult but having the desire to complete the task and so is the case, then problem solved. If but so in the future a problem arises or, should it arise, there will come a plan to reinvent. If buts is my leadership preference for expressing a polite request, gives an opinion, taking the initiative, and used to implied reservation for a conjunction to bring about mutual understanding. The skill inventory for my leadership is conscientiousness. The high scored in the category described Maria accurately for having received an award for conscientiousness. The facets for conscientiousness according to Johnson, 2014, are self-efficacy that describes confidence in ability to accomplish things and believe have the intelligence, common sense, drive, and self-control necessary for achieving success. Orderliness is well organized and likes to live according to routines and schedules with keeping lists and making plans. Dutifulness is having the strong sense of duty and moral obligation. Achievement striving is the strong drive to achieve excellence, to be recognized as successful with keeping track of goals and having a strong sense of direction in life. Self-discipline is having willpower for the ability to persist at difficult or unpleasant tasks until they are completed. Possess high self-discipline is able to overcome reluctance to begin tasks and stay on track despite distractions. Cautiousness is having the disposition to think through possibilities when making decisions before acting. Johnson, 2014. Alternatively, having scored low in openness is misclassifying me for not equate openness to intellect. Having an average score for intellect indicate that I'm open-minded for emotional intelligence to analyze situation for what is real and possible to facilitate communication for mutual understanding to bring about a conviction for relationship. Open mind is my intellect for giving people choices instead giving orders. My reason ability to make good decisions and maintain productive mindset on the job outweighs the artist for brain teaser for openness to riddles and jokes. Understanding my emotional intellect is also my power of because to give reason. There is always reason associated with emotions, and in order to be able to provide an assistant to resolve the problem for consensus is having the intellectual style for selling ideas that other will buy is theoretically giving the reason for compliance. According to Bennett, 2016, whenever you want the prospects to do something that they don't naturally really want to do, remember to use the word because and give a reason. Just give some kind of reason and notice how much more compliance achieved versus giving no reason. I love to use the word because to give reason to other for making decision. Also, using because is giving a motive for an action. To know why for because allow logical thinking for creating a pattern that will lead to forming an action for success that will mostly effective for accomplishing task. Because you think it thorough for appropriate action is being thoughtful. My ability of leading people to be productive and being successful is conscientiousness. Conclusions for personality. Since there are so many variations in personality traits, there will never be a definite answer. Therefore, leadership is essential to personal development. Each 5 attributes of honest, forward-looking, competent, inspiring, intelligent are all inseparably for full around personal development. My trait for conscientiousness strongly correlates with the people who desire to follow my leadership for self-discipline and morality. Hence, honesty takes the big part of my personality for quality. Honesty allowed me to see my weaknesses for making improvement. Improving self is quality individual. When I start my leadership position, I need to be proactive to be seen as an honest leader, and I have the plan to go out of my way to be an effective leader that inspires others. References: Bennett,